95, you're risking $5 with the intention of taking this to 120. That's going to be a 4-to-1 risk-reward ratio. But in terms of your overall account risk, you're only risking $500, which is 5%. This leaves you 20 chances to go broke. Now, here's the reality. If you do the trader conditioning system and you follow the rules that I've given you, and when you're finally making 70% of your trades, trader conditioning and virtual trader profitable, and you move into real money, 20 chances to go broke is a lot. I think you're going to pull it out. I really do. But here's what I find. You get into a trade like this, the trade starts to go down. Before you know it, you're $500, $600, $700, $800 in the hole. You're breaking the rules. Before you know it, you're starting to really take big hits. And that's where you get screwed up. Almost every time when traders get screwed up, it's because they break the rules on the fly. Okay? Now, let's look at some other statistics here. Let's say you're only risking 2%. Well, if you had a $100 stock with a target of 120 and a $95 stop, you can't afford to trade 100 shares. So you would have to go down to about 40 shares. 50 shares would put you to 2.5% because you're still risking $5 per share. So how far will $5 per share go into $200? Well, we'll do some quick math here, and it's going to be about 40. But just in case I'm messing that up, there it is, 40. So you can do 40 shares and maintain a $5 per share risk, which is only $200 for your $10,000 account. Now, some of you are looking at this and saying, my gosh, why would you get down so small? Well, look, you've got 50 chances to go broke. Your odds of pulling this out with a good risk-reward ratio, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, and you're limiting your risk per trade, not just risk-reward, but risk per trade, your odds of staying in this game and playing a lot longer have just gone up exponentially. Now, what if you go down to 1%? I don't think on a $10,000 account this is all that practical, to be honest. And what I find is the smaller the account, the more you have to risk. It's just that simple. The smaller your account, the more you're going to have to risk. But if you have a $50,000 or $100,000 account, 1% becomes very practical. Okay, so on a $10,000 account, 1% would be $100. Okay, so if you had that same $100 share, going up to 120, your stop's at 95. How much can you risk? Well, it's $5 per share is your risk. You divide $5 per share into 100, you're going to get 20 shares. That's all you can afford on this particular trade. Does this make sense? Is this making sense? Need some feedback here. My last commentary was from Frank with an audible.com reference. I'm getting nothing. Have I lost? I think I lost connection to you guys. Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I don't. Okay, my computer over here has zero connection. That's the problem. But I see that I'm still transmitting. Kate or Ron, would you please comment and let me know that I'm still live? Because I have no idea if I'm live right now. Okay, I don't think I'm live. Hello? Anybody?
Jeremy, you're alive.
Am I alive? I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm still here. This is fantastic. Oh my gosh. I thought I was dead. I thought it was over.
Pinch yourself.
Oh my God. Okay, let me see if I can get my laptop fixed here because it's the one that froze and
it must be just yours because ours is working fine.
Okay, my laptop's been on the fritz. I got to buy a new one. Let me just log it back in. That way I can see all the comments. Forgive me, guys. So you're probably sitting here telling me it was brilliant, and I was thinking that I was dead. No, I didn't think I was dead. All right. I can actually look at comments over here while I'm catching up. Okay, good. Now I got some good comments here. Some of you say it was fantastic. Okay, wonderful. So you guys all are agreeing that I was live. Okay, great. Now I just feel like the idiot here. Okay, let me. Okay, looks like my laptop is totally frozen. Fantastic. This thing is. For some of you, I got at least a couple of you ripping on Mac users here. Macs are amazing computers. They truly are. Until they stop working, right? And most PC guys don't believe me whenever I tell you this. I can, for example, the computer I'm teaching from, it's my desktop. It's a Mac Pro Tower. I can't tell you the last time I restarted it. I mean, it was over a month ago, easily. I mean, I just never restart my computers. My laptop used to be the same way, but I actually had to restart it 6 times, like totally frozen, 6 times on Friday. And so it just did the same thing. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, okay, I'm going to keep teaching, and I just won't be able to see your commentary as much. All right, so risk per trade. You want to blend this with your risk reward. Again, the risk reward is how much from your entry, stop, and target. This is the formula for your risk reward, and your reward is your entry to your target. Your risk is your entry to your stop, and you don't want that ratio to be out of whack. Ideally, it's at least 2-to-1 reward, 3-to-1, 4-to-1 reward relative to the risk that you're risking. Risk per trade is how much capital you can actually risk relative to your overall account, okay? And so if you follow with a $10,000 account, 5% is $500, gives you 20 chances to go broke. Actually, even if you had a $100,000 account, 5% would still give you 20 chances to go broke. If you have a $1,000 account, 5% becomes $50. You still have 20 chances to go broke. You follow the math. Okay, now here's the way you can increase your plays. Check this out. And I stole this one from Courtney Smith. Has done a great job of breaking some of this stuff down. If you have a scaled idea, you keep rescaling it, okay? So rather than saying I got a $10,000 account, I got 20 chances to go broke, $500 each, look at it this way. If you have a $10,000 account, and let's say you're risking 5% per trade, well, in your first trade, if you lose, you're down to $9,500. You have a new risk capital now that's no longer $500, but now it's down to $475. You see how this is working? So what's happening is you're basing your 5% on your new baseline in terms of capital. After your next loss, you lose $475. Now your base is $9,025. Yeah, it's hurting, but your new risk capital is only $451. You can keep following the math down, and after 1, 2, 3, 4 losses, instead of having a $2,000 loss, you're not quite that bad. You're down at $8,146. Your new risk capital is $407. And here's the deal. You can squeeze a lot more than 20 chances out. In fact, theoretically, it would keep dividing almost infinitely. There comes a point where it's not practical. You guys can see that. But just having this basic risk management in place and only risking, a few percentage points, whether it be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 per trade, look at the value that you get, how much longer you can stay in a trade, and how much longer you can stay in the game without going broke. Now, my example that I used here with doing a $100 stock with a $95 stop, giving you a $5 risk, that is directly a stock proportion. Now, you can use those numbers with your options, but in reality, a lot of times you can squeak out a little bit different risk reward with your options, because here's what happens with options. Your delta determines how fast you make or lose money. So let's say that you have a $100 stock and a $95 stop on that trade with a $120 target, just sticking with my same examples here. You've got a $5 per share risk. And on the stock itself, you have a 4-to-1 risk-reward ratio on the stock to the stock's position itself. Well, let's say that the option, and I'm going to make up numbers here, but let's say the option equals $7 per share. Okay? Theoretically, if the stock went from 100 to 120, your new option price would be $20 per share minimum. So you would more than double the return on your initial capital. But as you think about the risk, is the risk the same? Well, if you held it all the way to expiration, then you'd be risking $7 per share. But if you just hold it until the stock comes down to 95, which would be your stop, okay, what would your option be worth? Well, let's just back this out a little bit. Let's assume for a moment we're going to risk a $5 per share drawdown is what we'll call it. $5 per share drawdown, our $7 per share option, and we're going to say that we start off with a 0.65 delta. Okay. Well, as the stock goes from $100 down to $99, we lost $1 times 65 cents. That's how much you lost out of your option. You didn't lose $1, you lost $1 times 65 cents. That's your delta. So your $7 option became worth $6.35. Did I do that math right? I think I did. All right, $6.35. Okay, from 99 down to 98, theoretically, you'd lose another $1 times 65, except that's not real. Why is that not real? Because the gamma tells us that our delta is changing. From this next dollar to dollar move, your delta is more like 60 cents. Or maybe 58 cents. So that next loss is only going to be maybe 60 cents, we'll say. You take that out, now you're down to $5, and somebody, I gotta get my calculator out here. I'm not that smart with math. All right, so $6.35 minus 60 cents leaves us with $5.75. Okay, the next dollar loss down to 97, gamma would be also affecting the delta. Delta may be down to 50 cents, we'll say. Okay, so now you take out another 50 cents. Your option is losing proportionally much less than your stock is losing. So you can see what's happening here. The option premium is not eroding as quickly as the dollar for dollar risk on the stock, which is quite interesting because that really means that even though you're technically setting up a dollar for dollar trade stock-wise, you're not actually taking on as much risk with the option. Is this pretty interesting to you guys? You see how that works? Did I keep you? I got to try to get commentary here so I know if you guys are following here. Okay, so Michael says, am I crazy, but you were trading stock, not options, and you bought 100 shares at $100. This is your entire account, but with a $95 stop, you're only risking 5%, right? No, you're crazy. Because you're still thinking amount of total capital that you're putting into the trade versus the stop. You gotta think through the amount of capital you're putting on and how much you would have left. So in this case, let's say the stock continued, and we'll just go with round numbers. From 97 down to 95, we go another $2, but we'll do this times 50 cents. You lose $1. You're down to $4.25. Okay, because we only lost at 50 cents per share with the delta there. That only means $4.25. Our $7 minus $4.25, we actually were risking substantially less. $7 minus $4.25 is $2.75. Theoretically, depending on how fast it moved, you would only be subject to delta loss if you're not dealing with a lot of time value. Let's say that happened in a day or two. Because you guys have seen a stock like Apple, for example, which can move $4 or $5 in a day. Well, there's not a lot of time lost during that one day, but there could be a lot of loss of intrinsic value relative to the delta. And so you pay attention to some of these numbers and you realize how the option trading can really balance it out, and you really can take on a lot more, very cool trades without necessarily risking as much as you thought that you were risking. Does this make sense? Am I totally losing you? I got to get better. Hold on. Let me finish logging this sucker in here. Been trying to do more than one thing at once, and I just can't see my comments. It's driving me nuts.
Welcome to go to
oh, look at that. I'm welcome. Hold on. We're going to get echo. There it goes. Okay, there we go. I got it out now. Okay, so now I can see all of my comments again. Fantastic. This is great. Okay, so far it looks like comments are good. Very interesting. My brain hurts, says Robert. It contradicts somewhere a recommendation to buy deep in the money strikes. Not really, Adam. Adam, in terms of money management, yes, theoretically. But in terms of likelihood of a winning trade, no. And so, Adam, you do have to balance the in the money versus out of the money. And if you don't believe me on this, ask Jeremy Newsom how it worked out for him. Jeremy Newsom told his story in class last night about how he came through learned about options trading, but didn't follow any of the rules, and he blew out about a $40,000 account at him. And as he started to dig into it and realize where he was messing up, he realized that the difference between winning trades and losing trades was in the money and out of the money. And isn't that interesting, Adam? So yes, if you're in a winning situation, in an out of the money strike price technically will be a better risk or better ROI for your investment. But if you're wrong, you're risking a whole lot more ultimately, Adam, because you'll end up holding it longer and you'll end up losing faster on it. So you're just going to kind of have to trust me on that one, practice it. But, Adam, if you want to do out of the money, I don't care. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. I really, really don't care. All right. I think I've beat that concept into the ground. Let's talk about stops. Most important rule of stops. Please listen to this rule. Probably the number one mistake that traders make. Set the stop where the chart dictates it needs to go, not where you feel your risk reward is more appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, this rule right here is so freaking important. I can't highlight it enough. I'm not scribbling it out. I'm highlighting it. This is highlighted. Set the stop where it needs to go, not where you want it to go. Now, where does a stop need to go? Usually it's going to be above a swing high or below a swing low point, or it's going to be based on a moving average. Okay, just like I've taught you before, set your stops based on the swing points. Let's come over here and let's take a look at this trade setup. Let's assume that if this trade moves above $88, we're going to go bullish. And if it moves below, what is that, 85, we'll call it 85.90. Okay, 88, we'll go bullish, and 85.90, we'll go bearish. This will be our basic entries, okay? So let's do some quick rewards, okay? If this thing goes, well, actually, let's do the bullish one first, then we'll come back and do the bearish one. All right, so we'll set our entry at 88. Our target is 94. What's our reward? 94 minus 88, $6 reward, right? Not doing any math wrong on that? $6 per share reward. Now, the question is, where does the stop need to go in this trade? Now, some of you immediately are going to say, I want a 5-to-1 or a 4-to-1 risk-reward ratio. Heck, I'd like a 6-to-1, so I'm only going to do $1. So some of you are immediately going to come in here and say, I want to set my stop at 87. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a losing stop. And what happens if you set your stop here at 87? Well, you're going to get stopped out, and then you're going to become a victim, and you're going to say, I can't believe it. The stock, it went my direction, and then the market makers ran my stops, and they just stole all my money. No, that's bullcrap. Can't remember our student's name. She was a sweetheart. She's still here, might be in this class. Shared her story of how she always thought the market makers ran her stops. And then she did her trader conditioning, and she was working through back trading, and she couldn't figure out while she was back trading why her stops kept getting run. And then she said, wait a second, there's no market makers in back trading. And she realized that she was the problem all along. When you take the market makers out of the equation and you still get your stops run, you're the problem, not the market makers. So do your back trading, do the historical replay stuff we taught in the trader conditioning process. Figure out where you start setting your stops. And you're going to learn in this trade setup, assuming that the stock turns around and breaks above $88 in this particular setup, then the likelihood is that it could still come back over, possibly all the way down to 86, but the likelihood of it breaking below this price point right here, which is that low right there, about 85.90, coincidentally where we're going to set our bearish entry, but in this case it's about 85.90, the likelihood of it breaking below that point and then continuing bullish is very low. But the likelihood of it coming back down to test that point and then breaking bullish is very high. So where do we set our stops? We set our stops down here where the likelihood is the highest that if the trade moves below this price point, it's done. And in this case, that's going to be about 85.90, which coincidentally is also where we would set our bearish entry on this trade, but that's not what we're looking at. So what's our risk here? Our risk is going to be 88 minus 85.90, leaving us with $2.10 risk. Is a 6-to-2 ratio okay? $6 risk for $2 risk for $6 reward. That breaks down to 3-to-1. That would be acceptable. This is not a crappy trade. Is it the greatest trade? It's not the greatest trade, but it's not crappy. Now, this might, hopefully, there should be a red flag. Does anybody see a potential red flag with this trade? There is a red flag sitting right in front of us. Does anybody see a potential red flag? The gap. Thank you. There is one potential problem. We've got a gap here. And how do you handle that? Sometimes you just take the risk. Sometimes there's two ways you can handle it. One is you wait until the trade is higher than that. So you say, well, my bullish entry is going to be up here at 91 now. And then you say, that'll be my bullish entry. But now you have a horrible risk-reward ratio. Or you go ahead, you enter the trade at 88, and you say, you know, statistically speaking, this cycle suggests that if it breaks up, it's going to go ahead and fill that gap. I'm not worried about it. You know, it's not looking like it's a substantial gap. There's a good possibility it's going to fill. That comes with experience, and that also comes with sometimes you just take the risk. Okay, so sometimes it's not always the perfect science you would like for it to be. Okay, now on the bearish trade, let's look at the bearish trade here. We set our bearish entry down here at 85.90. 85.90 would be our bearish trade. Our bearish target is 82.10. Okay, what kind of a profit does that leave us? Well, our reward, if this trade does perfect for this little segment of the move right here, our reward would be 85.90 minus 82.10. That leaves us with $3.80. Okay, $3.80 possible reward. Now, some of you say, well, that's nothing. Well, let's check the risk. Where would we want to put our bearish stop? So if the trade goes bullish, where would the stop be? I'm going to suggest that we go probably back up here about to the place where our bullish trigger was, right around $88. Not every trade is this cut and dry, but this particular one is. So we'll say $88 will be our stop. Okay, well, $88 minus 85.90 leaves us with, what did we say it was? $2.10. Just make sure I'm not losing my mind here. 85.90, $2.10. So we've got a $3.80 to $2.10 reward relative to the risk. Is this a really great trade? What do you guys think? No, it's really not a great trade at all. No. Could you place it? Sure, you can place it. Could you place it and could you gamble that, hey, maybe it's really going to trade all the way down here to my next target, which would be about 79? Yeah, you could do that too. Could you make the argument and could you say, this looks like an island reversal gap, I'm going to go ahead and place that bet? You certainly could. Doesn't mean that it's as predictable, and it doesn't mean that the likelihood of winning is as high. Do you see what I'm saying? So as a trader, you have to make these decisions. I can't always give you a cut and dry. But I personally think that that doesn't fit our formula. It doesn't work well. But again, you guys have to decide. This is where you guys have to step up and say, I'm the trader. I'm not just following a formula. Okay? Now, what about if, let's look at this a little bit differently here. Let's say that we're going to go bearish at 85.90 with a target of 82.10, but we're going to do this with a $85 put option, and the cost of this put option is $3.20 with a delta. And let's say we did it at the money, because that's actually just one out of the money. Let's do a delta of 0.45. You say, well, that doesn't follow the rules. Well, I know it doesn't follow the rules, but let's just go with me here, okay? Humor me. Stops up here at $88. If the stock goes from 85.90 down to 82.10, we're going to have a $3.80 profit. Okay? What would happen to the value of this put that was $3.20? Well, the first dollar that it moves would increase by 45 cents. The next dollar would increase by 45 cents plus whatever the gamma is. But let's look at it from a risk standpoint. From a risk standpoint, from 85.90 up to 86.90, we would only lose 45 cents. Okay, so let's say the stock comes up from 85.90 to 86.90. Okay, so then we'll go 320 minus 45. This is the move from 85.90 up to 86.90. Okay, so we're going to lose 45 cents. This is going to take us down, and we're only going to have, what did I say, 320 minus 45 cents? Okay, we're only going to have $2.78 left. Then from 86.90 up to 87.90, what are we losing here? We'll be less than 45 cents, probably be like 40, but we'll just go with 45 cents. Assume the delta didn't change. Okay, we'll take out another 45 cents. That leaves us down here with $2.33. And you're almost to your stop. It's another 10 cents. We'll just take 10 cents straight off of here, even though that's not what will happen, but it'll be close enough. Okay, so your option value becomes $2.20. You only actually lost $1 in real loss. Even though on the stock, you would have lost a couple of bucks on the deal. Now, as you look at that, your risk reward just changed. Which is why I often say in a power trader, for example, this may not be such a bad trade depending on how you do it, because 85.90 down to 310, if you had a $3.80 profit, you had a $3.80 profit times, even if it was the 45 cents, it'd still be $1.71, which is almost getting you up to 2-to-1, but it would be better than that because every dollar, as you're getting into the money and whatnot, every dollar is going higher and higher. By the time you get to the end, you'll be at a 70, 80% delta, and you'll be making profit. And you'll be like, wow, this is incredible. Now, you go one strike price in the money, you back out all the numbers on it. You'd have to go up to the $90 strike price, and you back out all your deltas and everything, and you can figure the real risk reward that you would potentially have with an option. And sometimes it would have been a 3 or 4 or 5-to-1 risk reward ratio. Pat says my math really sucks. Does it really suck? What did I do wrong, Pat? I didn't know. I was trying to do it right. Where did I screw it up, Pat? I want to clarify because I don't want to mislead everybody. I can't believe that. From Pat. 320 minus 45? Did I not get that right? What did I do, Pat? I'm so confused. Didn't I say 275? I think I said 278. Oh, where did I get that? Well, I just punched my buttons on the iPhone. The iPhone's messed up. Maybe I typed in some. I don't know what I typed in. 320 minus 45 cents is 275. I don't know. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Shoot. Now I feel like now I'm really embarrassed. Robert says, just tell them options are better to trade. There you go. Options are better to trade. All right. Now, my point here is that with the option, depending on the trade setup, not every trade setup's like this, but depending on the trade setup, the option sometimes would be a winning ratio. Right here with the option, theoretically, with the numbers that I used, this trade setup could be a winning trade setup with a winning risk-reward ratio. That's my point. Okay, do you guys get my real point here? Okay, if I confused everybody, clarify what I confused so I can try to bring some clarity to it. Yeah, DG, an options calculator, theoretically, you could put the exact numbers in there, or, your broker usually, like Options Express, has an options calculator. It's got all the numbers already plugged in, all the Greeks, and so it will kind of factor it for you. Yeah, and that gives you a good estimate. So yeah, I'm not using options calculator. I'm doing it old school and screwing it up, I guess. All right, let's get over here to what I call capital extraction. Tough lesson. Believe it or not, tough lesson. Take your frickin' money. When you make a winning trade or you make a series of winning trades, take your money. Pay yourself. The worst thing you can do is what most of us have done, and that is to think, oh, I've got a winning trade. I'm going to let my profits go and I'm going to reinvest it until I really make a bunch of money. And then what happens? You start to get careless and you blow your account out. And then you say, man, if I just taken some of my profits, this wouldn't have hurt so bad. Take your money. Now, don't take all your money. You do want to grow your account, but take your money. When you have a profitable trade, take some money, put it into your bank. The great thing is most brokers today, they just have a place like Options Express. You just go in and you transfer money. It goes straight in your bank account. It's fantastic. You just transfer money right over. It's the easiest way to do it. Just go transfer money back. Jesse Livermore said he takes 50% of every winning trade. Okay, now that's a strategy. You could take 50% of every winning trade. It's probably not a losing strategy. Another way you can do it, work your account to a target. Let's say you start with a $10,000 account or a $5,000 account. Maybe you say, when I get to $15,000, I'm going to take half my profit. Say take $250 out, $2,500 out when I get to 15,000. Then you say, when I get to 20 grand, I'm going to take another half out. So you take, another 3,000 or 4,000 out. That's another way you can work it. But the point is, don't be afraid to take your profits out. Guys, you work hard. You spend a lot of time learning to trade. You put the effort in. Take your profits out. Take your spouse out for a vacation. Ron Sikorsky, one of our moderators here, he made a bunch of money. And what did he do? He took his profits out and he brought his wife to East Tennessee. And they stopped by the office and said, hey, it's fantastic. Then I think they kept going from East Tennessee straight on up to New Jersey. And then she said she was never going to ride in a car with him again. But that's a personal story with Ron and his wife. Point is, take your profits out. It's a lot more enjoyable to enjoy trading when you take some money out rather than always leaving your money in your account and never taking any money out. Take your profits out. Okay, now don't take all of them out, but take some out. All right? So, again, personal decisions. Jesse Livermore, 50% of every winning trade. Another suggestion, hit a target, take some out. Don't make it a ridiculous target. Don't say I'm going to start with $10,000 and I'm only going to take money out when I hit $100,000. That's ridiculous. Make a 50 or 100% gain in your account, maybe a 200% gain. Maybe you take a $5,000 account to 15 or 20, you take some profits out. Take a $10,000 account to 20 or 30, take your profits out. But the point is, get a target that's a sustainable target, take profits out. All right? Now, avoid known mistakes. Very important money management. Over trading, probably the number one mistake of traders. What's over trading? Oh gosh, this is the one right here. This is where trading becomes crack. It's so freaking addicting. Here's what happens. You go out, you place a winning trade. You close it out. You got a 210% profit. What's the first thought? Let's do it again. Let's do it again. What do? You start looking for a trade. The problem is there's not a trade, but you try to force a trade. You force a trade. What happens? You lose on the trade. Avoid over trading. The number one reason great traders go broke. Statistics have proven it. The number one reason great traders go broke. Over trading. Over trading. All right. Next known mistake. Making exceptions to the rules on the fly. Don't do it. You're in the middle of a trade. Don't go making exceptions to your rules. Trade your plan. Set your trading plan, trade your plan, make your exceptions after the fact. When you go back, you review it and say, okay, next time I'm not going to do this. But don't do it in the heat of the moment. That's when you're going to screw up. Not having a trading plan. That is a known mistake. Avoid not having a trading plan. Worse, ignoring the trading plan. You take the time, you put a trading plan together, you ignore it. Ouch. That's just downright foolishness. Or how about this one? Not cutting losing trades. Look, guys, when you get into a trade, you've got your stop set. You've already done your risk-reward analysis. You say, I'm not going to risk more than $500 in this account or this trade. You get down to $500, cut your losses. Or better yet, maybe you were willing to risk $500, but after you had a $220 loss, you realized the trade was falling apart. Cut your losses. Don't hang on to losers hoping for the best. Cut your losses. Taking small losses will let you stay in the game a lot longer. Cut your losses quickly. All right? And then maybe the biggest mistake of all, ignoring your own weaknesses. If you know for a matter of fact that you don't have the discipline to close a trade at a target, you better acknowledge that and set a contingency order to close the trade at a target. If you know for a fact that you don't have the discipline to do it, you better find a way to overcompensate that. Ignoring your own weaknesses is a guaranteed way to get eaten up by your weaknesses. Guaranteed way. Jim Rohn used to say you set goals not just because of the goal, but you set it because of the person you have to become in the process of attaining that goal. Well, if you're an undisciplined person, you set goals to be a great trader because you have to become a disciplined human being to accomplish that. It's important. In order to become the person you want to be, or let's say it differently, in order to obtain the goals that you want to obtain, you must become a better person. You must literally develop yourself. That's the real reason for doing it. And so if you ignore your own weaknesses, what are you doing? You're cutting out personal development. You're not personally developing and growing. That's so important. You've got to do this. Guys, I've said it before. Trading is really not about the money. It's about a lot of stuff, really. One of the biggest things is about developing into a better person. You learn to be a great trader, you're a much greater person. I promise you. These ideas of, high-fluting traders that, make a bunch of money and then they just go to Vegas and they're just high-rolling gamblers. It's a myth. It's an image. It is not reality. Really great traders are not really flamboyant gamblers. They're just not. Really great traders have learned how to be much better human beings, and there's a reason for it, because that's what it takes to be a consistent, great trader. All right, let me give you some basic financial planning. I'm running out of time. I'm over time, but here's some J-Dub ideas. 2 keys. You ready? Number 1, balance. Number 2, diversification. This is big picture. Big picture, basic financial planning. Big disclaimer. I am not a financial planner. I cannot tell you how to allocate your funds. These are just some ideas from Jeremy. You can take them or leave them. Do not inherently assume that I am a qualified financial planner telling you what to do with all of your money. That's not what I am. It's not what I'm trying to do. Here's just some basic ideas. Balance and diversification. Recognize what each income tool is. Recognize what it's valuable for. And do not try to make it something that it is not. Okay, what do I mean by income tools? Well, there's several income tools. You can have trading as an income tool. Trading is valuable for income generation. It is not a savings account. Do not confuse the function of trading. A savings account is a great place for saving money and having some security. It is not an income generation strategy. Okay? So keep in balance your income generating strategies versus your security strategies and balance them and diversify them. If you'll do this, you will go so much further in life. Now, here's my idea for a financial fortress. Okay? Some of you have seen this before, but I'm going to share it with you again. Imagine that you're going to build yourself a Greek fortress, okay? And the top is going to represent fun, the bottom is going to represent security, and these columns are going to be what I call your cash flow columns. All right, now, what are cash flow columns? Cash flow columns represent your various incomes. Most people have a job, and most people's job cash flow goes like this. Straight into fun, they are broke. With little eyes in the broke. That's so nasty. Forgive me. Broke. Somebody was making fun of Jeremy Newsom the other night and said that his handwriting was as bad as mine. You guys don't get it. It's that hard to write on the computer screen, okay? In person, I don't think my handwriting's that bad. All right. So if you have a job and all of your income flows up to the fun category, you're broke because all you're doing is blowing your money. Okay? Now, there's other people, and their job, all of the income flows into security. They are miserable tightwads. And they're not cool. They're not cool at all. Some of you are miserable tightwads. Some of you are broke, fun-loving college kids who never grew up. But for most people, the majority of the world, this is the model. Now, what happens if your job disappears? The cash stops flowing to fun or to security, and you become government preferred. What is government preferred? These are the people that the government prefers to subsidize so they can buy votes or other stuff, but they're not producing anything of profit for society. Government preferred. I'm not really sure where that came from. I just came up with it on the fly. All right? So if your job stops, your cash flow stops flowing to fund, it stops flowing to secure, you become government preferred, you are not producing anything for society. Most importantly, you are also miserable. Oh, by the way, if you have a job and all of your money flows up to fund, but you're broke, what happens? Well, you have immediate gratification, but you're still miserable. Do you notice what's happening? Government preferred, broke, and tightwads are all miserable. The whole world is miserable if this is your income and your balance sheets. I have to read this. Michael says, I spent most of my money on wine, women, and song, and the rest I spent foolishly. All right. So now, oh boy, the commentaries are flowing in here. All right. Now, a few people have this. These are going to be your higher income people, to be honest, because to be completely honest, your basic job does not give you enough money. It's just that simple. If you're making $60,000 a year, you are probably either having fun or having security, but you're probably not having both. Okay, so there's a few people that have jobs that flow up to fun, and they have cash that flows down to security, and they are okay, but they would like more. But if you have fun and you have security, at least you're not miserable. You hit the Dave Ramsey bell and everybody's like, okay, we got some balance here. This is good. But it's still not what I call joyful. And it's definitely not true peace of mind. So let's go a little bit further. Fewer people have this. Rental properties that have cash flow and job. Now this is cool. Because when you have some job that's flowing to security and to fun, and you have some passive income from rental properties flowing to fun and to security, ooh, this is getting better. Now, I have definitely seen people that have this cash flow financial fortress, and they're still tightwads. And I've seen people that have a financial fortress that looks like this, and they're still broke and just having a bunch of fun. But here's what I can tell you. I've never met anybody that has a financial base that looks like this. They've got rental properties and they've got a job. I've never seen anybody like this that is not at least making it on their own and not having to be subsidized by parents or government. So you're making progress. You're making substantial progress. And by the way, this is the beginning of financial freedom. Why? Because what happens if your job disappears? You still have cash flow. Whoa. Now, let's build this out a little bit further. Wealthy people start to look this way. Businesses, rental properties, and job. Yes, I still included job. Why did I still include job? Because most wealthy people, contrary to popular belief, are very hardworking individuals. I'll let that one sink in for a little while. Most wealthy people are very, very hardworking. Now, what's the perfect fortress? I think the perfect fortress looks something like this. You have lots of fun. You have lots of security. You've got lots of cash flow columns. It could be things like other investments, trading income, businesses, rental properties, job, maybe something different. And now what happens if you lose your job? It's okay. Your fortress will not come crumbling down. Ladies and gentlemen, I personally believe this is what everybody should attain to. Not only should every individual attain to it, every business should attain to this. This starts to create balance and diversification. And if one thing screws up, you don't go down with that. Just imagine if the government had balance like this. Where could we be? Incredible. So, recognize your tools. Active trading is an income strategy, and that's it. Trading is not so you can live the life of a lavish playboy. Trading is a tool. That's it. Trading is a source of cash flow. That's it. It's not a savings account. It's just a cash generation strategy. That's why it's so important that you don't put all your money in trading, and that's why it's so important that you take some profits out. Use the tools as what they are intended to be. Now, where do I put all my profits? You can put some in the bank. That's a good place to start. You can also reward yourself. Just take your wife on a trip or your husband on a trip. Hey, your husbands will like that. Wives will like it too. Diversify your types of investments. And most importantly, start building intrinsic wealth. An option is not intrinsic wealth. As much as I love options trading, it is not intrinsic wealth. What is intrinsic wealth? Real estate has intrinsic wealth. Solid businesses have intrinsic wealth. Venture capital can have intrinsic wealth. You know, what if you guys go out and you become the venture capitalist for a bright young startup? I met one just the other day. In fact, I talked him out of starting his franchise, and he's going to come work for me. That's how bright he was. But just the other day, I met a great kid. His name's Blake. He's 26 years old. He's already secured some rights to a franchise, but he needed some capital. He's a great guy. And I was like, hey, this is the kind of guy that I could get behind. Well, in his case, I liked him so much that I pulled him away from his franchise, and I said, maybe we'll do your franchise later, but I want you to work for me right now. And so that's another story. But, you know, my point is, become a venture capitalist. Find some bright young kids that are getting out of business school, that just finished their MBA. They're brilliant entrepreneurs, and they need capital. You can become the engine that provides the business. You don't have to be the business itself. Buy into something that's got some systems already established. Jump into metals, jump into minerals, anything that creates intrinsic wealth. This is what you're wanting for your long-term security. Your businesses, your real estate, all of these things can combine to create your financial fortress and create your security. And guess what? When you've got great security, you've got a lot of cash flow columns, you can have all the fun you ever wanted. Now that's awesome. And guess what? I bet that's the real reason that you're in this class, because in the heart of it, you're saying, I want financial freedom so that I'm not in bondage to financial slavery. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this. We've all been, I think we've all been, I've certainly been, most of you have been on the other side of the coin. Not everybody has been on the side of financial freedom, but most of us, at least at some point, have been on the side of financial slavery. And it is bondage. It is absolute bondage. Nobody deserves it. And yet, unless you were born into wealth, everybody is born into it. Here's the beautiful thing about capitalism and the American way of economics. Anybody who sets their eyes on freedom can break free. That is my desire to help impart to you. And if I can help you guys break free from financial slavery in any way, if I just move you down the road a little bit, I feel like I've contributed something of great value to you. All right, here's your action steps for tonight. I'm sorry we're so late. Practice setting up several trades. Pay close attention to your risk reward. Determine how much capital you want to start trading. Determine how much risk that you can place on each trade. Start working with these principles. And I really know and believe that if you put them into practice, use some really good psychology, good emotional management, you guys are all going to be winners. All right, any questions, comments, opposing views before we call it a night here? I'm sorry we went a little late. Got a couple of delays in there. Joel says he's government preferred because he's a disabled vet. Oh, Joel, you're not government preferred. Don't take it personal. You are breaking free from all of it. You just hit a slump. You just hit a short slump. The government preferred would never be in this class. The truly government preferred, they would never be here because they don't want to help themselves in any way, shape, or form. Please forgive me if I offended anybody with my off-the-cuff remarks. I'm probably going to get sued for it. Go figure. All right. Thank you for those of you saying you appreciated the class. So should you not trade within a retirement account? Oh, Charles, great question. Charles, keep the focus of what the function is. You should not have a retirement account 100% vested in options. No. I think it would be very foolish money management. I do not think it's crazy to say, hey, I got a $250,000 retirement account. I'm going to take $25,000 of it and I'm going to trade it with options. I don't think that's crazy. You know, you're just taking a percentage of your retirement account and you're saying, I'm going to use some of these higher return trades and I'm going to see what I can do with it. I'll give you a perfect example. I got a friend and his name is Joe. his son, you might have even heard me tell you about it. His son was actually killed about a year, just over a year ago in the Gulf of Aden. He was in the Navy, and when I say he was killed, he wasn't really killed. He fell off of the Navy ship, which I realize sounds crazy, but apparently it's a pretty common thing. And 3 other people last year fell off of this same boat. So I guess they need to put up a guardrail. But anyway, so my friend Joe's son, Matt, fell off the boat, and they lost him in the Gulf of Aden. And in the process of this, Joe not inherited, but he had a fairly large payout from the life insurance policy from Matt. And part of Matt's will, talk about poetic irony, part of Matt's will was that Joe would take care financially with that money of Matt's mother. Problem is, Matt's mother was Joe's ex-wife, and they didn't really have the greatest relationship. But to honor his son, he's now got to manage this money and take care of his his ex-wife, who was Matt's mother. Well, so Joe it was a $500,000 payoff, and so Joe started trading all that immediately. He started trading it in gold mostly. And he was telling me about it, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me. I can't believe you're trading the whole thing." So, and I'm really coming to a point with this. Charles, the idea here was that what I helped Joe do is I helped him set up the idea. He had all this capital, but he didn't need to be investing it all. So I showed Joe how he could place the same trades with much less risk with the same money. He didn't have to risk all $500,000, which is what he was doing. He was putting everything on one trade. I showed him he could place, a $5,000 trade and potentially get about the same profit. And in that case, it works really well. But Charles, I do not think you should take a full retirement account and place everything in option trades. That would be very foolish, very risky. And no, I would never tell anybody to do that. Okay? Does that make sense to you there? I realize I went off on a tangent, told you a story that probably you didn't care about. Todd says, wow, that's rough. Poor Joe. Well, the good news, Todd, is Joe has done well enough with this, partly under my tutelage and partly because he was naturally kind of inclined to it. But he's done well enough that Matt's mother is going to be taken care of. And, I'm proud of Joe, and he's handled it exceptionally well. He's a very balanced individual. And, it's tough, but, he's doing it. Okay. Charles says, yes, my trading account doesn't allow options trading anyway. Okay, Charles. Now here's another thing to consider. Another way you might look at this, for example, in an IRA account, you might consider looking at some inverse ETFs. That's one thing that I could help you with, or not me personally, but the way that I've taught you to trade. The inverse ETFs is a way to trade bearish strategies inside of a retirement account. So the way that would work is, let's say you looked at, for example, SDS, which is an inverse ETF for the S&P 500. If you believe the overall market is going down, you buy SDS, and as the market goes down, SDS goes up. Why? Because the ETF, the exchange traded fund, has loaded up on short S&P futures. And because they loaded up on short S&P futures, when the market goes down, the fund goes up. So, Charles, that's one thing you could do. You also may be able to get options trading turned on in that account to write covered calls or to do, for example, a collar trade, which would allow you some protection and whatnot. So most retirement accounts, actually, if you can self-direct them, most of them do allow basic options trading, but not necessarily the more advanced spreads and whatnot, Charles. So you need to figure out what your account can allow and then decide what you want to allocate and how. Okay, that's where I'm not obviously qualified to help you in any way. I'm not a financial planner. We would have to literally sit down with each of your accounts, and then I'd have to be qualified and everything else to sit here and tell you how you should personally allocate it. But I'm assuming, Charles, if you're managing your own money, then you've taken on the responsibility, and you're going to be responsible, not risk it all at once. And just that's the point, Charles. Use your noggin. If you're going to take on your retirement account and manage it, use your noggin, be balanced, diversify, and you should be fine. Does this help? Am I helping at all? Am I digging a hole deeper and deeper? All right, you guys have an awesome evening. Happy trading to you. We will see you this coming Wednesday. Good night.